Hey friends, Dave Paulides, Can-Am Missing. This is Huck L. Berry. She's the executive producer of the show, and she's the big cheese. And she's nice enough to come in and supervise the production of the show. And she's a good girl. She's a good girl. Oh, that feels good, Dad. That feels good. Yeah. Oh, that's a big yawn. You gonna go back to sleep? Gonna go back to sleepy? Okay, you good girl. All right, we're on with the show. Make sure you watch our movie, Missing 411 National Parks, available on Amazon right now. And if you watch it, please leave a review. We need the reviews. Yes, we do. Okay. Before I get into the story today, it's a doozy. I want to read you something that came out yesterday. And I'm going to try to save you some headache and heartache. A lot of people like to go to national parks in the summer. Not me. Best time to go to a national park? May and late September. Just my own personal feelings. And why? Because there aren't the crowds. And right now we are getting a ton of crowds from all over the world. Article came out and said, these are the 10 best U.S. national parks for peace and quiet. Number 1, Wrangell St. Elias National Park and Preserve, Alaska. I understand why this made number 1. Because it is near the Alaska border near the Canadian border in Alaska, between Anchorage and Yakutat. It's in the middle of nowhere. And if you go there, there are really no resources for you. You better bring everything, and oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, it's stunning. But you get in trouble out there, forget it. Number 2, Lake Clark National Park and Preserve, Alaska. It's southwest of Anchorage, another very remote location, not quite as remote as Elias, but it's up there, folks. It's up there. Now, because we're talking about Alaska, I got to bring this up. We are going to Alaska, and we're going to be there in September. That's the big poster that's up here. 7-day Alaska cruise going by the Inland Passage. It is stunningly gorgeous. We drop you at each of the big ports. We're going to be in Juneau, Sitka, a few others. Unbelievably gorgeous. Unbelievable. The best way to see Alaska is by cruise ship on the Inland Passage. And you go to Gather Up. Gather Up is one word, events. Gather Up events on Google will take you there. Number 3 on the list, Lassen Volcanic National Park, California. I don't even know how many times I've been there. Dozens, at least. It's in Northern California. I wouldn't call it a stunningly gorgeous park, but it's worth visiting. And it doesn't get a lot of visitors because it's off the beaten track. You have to go from Sacramento north about 2.5 hours. And when you finally get there, in the summertime, it'll be extraordinarily hot. But it's probably worth going. Number 4, Kenai Fjords National Park, Alaska. Again, remote. I understand why it's on the list. It should have been on the list. And number 5 is a huge mistake. I don't know why they put this on the list. A huge mistake. Glacier National Park, Montana. Friends, if you come to Glacier in the summer, you are going to see mass humanity. Traffic jams. Don't come. Don't come in the summer. Like I said, come in May, early June, like the first week, and then forget the rest. And then late September and early October, the best times to come, bar none. I'm telling you for a fact. Glacier shouldn't even be on that list. Biscayne National Park, Florida. Really don't know anything about it. Hot Springs National Park, Arkansas. Really don't know much about that. But I would not go to Arkansas in the summer. That's just me. It's hot, humid, lots of bugs. Theodore Roosevelt National Park, North Dakota. Big Bend National Park is number 9. And number 10, they're lying to you again. Arches National Park in Utah. Now, why do I say they're lying to you? Big crowds. But I wouldn't go in the summer. Way too hot. Get yourself killed walking out there in the summertime. But unbelievably beautiful. If you've never been to Arches, again, go in that time frame I just told you, and you are be totally impressed. It's one of my favorite locations, actually. And there's a lot of good resources around there. There's a couple nice cities and worth going. Now, what are we going to talk about today? Well, that's a good question. We're going to talk about a setup case. And what do you mean by setup, Dave? Well, I mean that I've got to set up the second story. So I've got to tell you a little bit about this story. First of all, how many people have watched Vanished? It's only on Amazon. The History Channel owns it. I think it costs you $1.99 to watch it. Yes, I was one of the executive producers. I was one of the guys that made it. And it has to do with missing 411 cases. And it involved this case as part of that production. Mitchell Stailing from Texas. He disappeared June 9th, 2013 from Mesa Verde National Park. Now, I'm not going to go over all the intimate details in the case, but I'm going to set this up for you. Mitchell and his wife Deneen were vacationing with another couple, and they were driving cross country. They had no plans to stop at Mesa Verde. The RV broke down. They had to get it fixed. They were close to Mesa Verde. They had nothing to do for a day. So Deneen and Dale get a ride. They go up to the park. And they're sitting at the visitor center. And you could sit at the visitor center and look out at the cave dwelling and the trails. It's stunningly beautiful if you like the desert atmosphere, and what the dwelling people, the Pueblo people, did in that area is unbelievable. So they're sitting around just watching, and Dale, I think, probably got a little antsy and said, hey, I'm going to go take a hike on the trail. Well, the trail hikes in that area are all asphalt paved, can't get lost. Wife says, okay, well, don't take too long. He goes, I won't be long. And he takes off on the trail. And there's hundreds of people on these trails around the visitor center. Well, Dale didn't return, and Deneen notifies the National Park Service, and a search starts. Well, this park has a chief ranger, kind of the head of all rangers in the park, different than the superintendent, reports to the superintendent. And the chief ranger had a long-standing meeting and appointment with a local reporter just to talk about Mesa Verde and what it has to offer. It had nothing to do with the search. Well, he was so involved in the search, he forgot that he had this meeting. And the public hadn't heard about this search going on for Dale yet because it had just started. So the reporter from this local paper shows up, walks into his office and says, hey, how you doing? You ready to... He goes, oh my gosh. I am knee-deep in alligators right now. I've got a giant search going on for a missing man. It's been going on for a couple days. I really can't take my eyes off it. I've got a bunch of people coming in to help me. I'll tell you what, give me 2 hours. Why don't you go out, hike the trail, walk around, and then at about 2 hours, we'll have that meeting. I'll give you some time. She goes, okay. So she takes off. He goes about, and he's got more people coming in to help on the search, and he briefs them. And she goes off on the trail alone. Well, while hiking on one of these paved trails, she's soaking in the beauty. She hears a man calling for help, help me, please help me, I'm here, help me, help me. So she walks towards the voice. She had to go off trail, and she's looking around. She can't find him. She's about 1.5 miles from the visitor center. She's in good shape. She turns around and runs the 1.5 miles back to the visitor center. Runs right into the chief of Ranger's office. He's in the middle of this meeting. Has several people in the office. She goes, I need your help right now. I need somebody's help right now. What's wrong? What's wrong? She explains where she was at. And she says, I heard a man calling for help. This might be your missing person. The ranger turns and looks at his assistants and goes, oh my goodness. And then he tells her in front of everyone else, just yesterday, somebody else was on that trail and heard the same thing you heard. And we dispatched over 20 rangers into that area, and they searched for 8 hours and didn't find anything. Wow. So, he gets on the radio, detours some of the other rangers that are out searching, sends them back into the same area, and has them start searching that same area over again. But then he has another ranger go with the woman to explain exactly where she heard this. And they go back and she explains, and it's the exact same area. They didn't find Dale. A massive search, 2 weeks of searching, never found him. Then, and so he disappears in June of 2013. And then in September of 2020, the National Park Service special agents get an anonymous call that there's a dead body in Mesa Verde, and gives them the GPS coordinates. Now, why was it anonymous? Because Dale was found in an area that is restricted and off limits in that park. There aren't many parks that have these areas, but they say it's because it has, I don't know, remains, or it has archaeology that hasn't been worked and they don't want it destroyed. I don't know. But it's restricted. Obviously somebody went into that area. And when they did, they found Dale's remains. They went in and recovered the remains, and the Park Service said that there was no foul play, and that it looked like he just leaned up against a tree and died. Well, the path that Dale originally went down and disappeared on, I went with his son down that trail. A great young man. Great young man. Loved his dad dearly. And in that area where he was last seen, his son put a little memento down under a rock. Broke me up. Broke me up. So my question to you. Now you're here because you can think outside the box. You're here because you're a critical thinker. So when the Park Service went out the first time, when that person called for help, they brought canines with them, ground searchers, grid searched the area, nothing. Second time, same thing. They found nothing. Where are those voices coming from? The first time, nobody even knew a search was going on. This lady reporter didn't even know that someone might be missing or had been heard in that same area. She never knew. So if you've watched American Sasquatch Man, Myth, or Legend, we talk about portals. We talk about things coming out of portals. I've told you about instances where people say that They've walked into a portal, walked up to a portal. What if you walked through a portal? What would happen? Would you disappear? And what if you disappeared and you didn't recognize the area you were in? Would you call for help? I've told you many stories about people saying that all of a sudden they were in an area they never recognized. Well, how did they get into that area? When they were originally in an area they knew were like the back of their hands. So could Dale have walked into a portal, gotten lost, and that was his voice that those two people had heard? And then the portal dumped him out somehow, deceased, in an area 4.2 miles from where he was last seen. Now, when we filmed Vanished and we went into this area, Harvey Pratt was with me and his wife Gina. And I was sitting next to Harvey, and we were sitting at the visitor center looking over the park. He looked at me and goes, "Dave, this is a strange place." And he was right. Part of the time we filmed with a national park ranger that was an archaeologist specialist. And we knew the story about the Pueblo people that had lived in the cliffs in this area and had disappeared about 1,200 years ago. And they left their plates behind, looked like they left food on the plates. They just disappeared. And we asked the specialist at the time, "You hear a lot of rumors, but really, does anyone know what happened to these people?" He said, "No, nobody knows." Well, the only thing I've heard just recently is that somebody did some DNA analysis, and some of the DNA from the people that lived at Mesa Verde 1,200 years ago had been found with other tribes in other areas of New Mexico and Arizona. Well, over the years, these people that lived in these cliffs would leave and migrate and go to places, so finding DNA at other places isn't unusual. But leaving everything behind in the cliffs, some people said, "Oh, well, they had severe droughts and this and that." Well, that's true. But you wouldn't suddenly leave. Now, in that movie, Vanished, we brought in a couple scientists to measure time in front of these cliffs to see if there was a slippage in time. And if you watch the movie, you will see the stunning results we got and the behavior exhibited by these two guys was unbelievable. They were absolutely blown away by the results they got. So, is strange things happening at Mesa Verde? Oh, you got that right. It's a very, very odd place. All right. That's the setup. Keep that in the back of your mind while I tell you this story. You won't hear about it anywhere else. And why not? Well, because it's one of those fringe stories. Unless you pay close attention to the minutia in the data, you would never get it. It's a story about a missing Dakota air ambulance. Now, what those planes were is those. It's a big plane, holds about just a little under 40 people. It's large, very reliable, had a crew of 4. Went missing December 19th, 1945. It was carrying 22 medical evacuees from the Army and an orderly to take care of them. All were attached to the 35th RAAF squadron out of Townsville, Australia. The Dakota left a place called Ambon, and it's an atoll north of Darwin, Australia, at 11:50 a.m. local time on December 19th. And they were on the second hop of a flight from Mauritius into the mainland of Australia near Darwin. So these were the hops they were making. Bang, bang, and then there's Darwin, Australia right there. This area right here has hundreds of small islands. Hundreds. Water's warm. Yeah, if you had to go down hard, I'd rather go down in hard water where it's warm than in hard water when it's cold. Better chance of survival for sure. So as the plane takes off, they're into the flight a short period of time. Weather starts to get bad on their route. And it's believed that they ran into a series of electrical storms that eventually culminated in the development of a typhoon. Now, some people believed it still continued on its route. Other people believed that they would have deviated to go around the typhoon. Now, the RAAF and other resources immediately started to deploy once the plane was late getting in. That area I showed you is called the Banda Sea. And the RAAF said if they survived, they'd be on one of those hundreds of islands. And it would be water survivable. The plane had an experienced crew of 4. And the plane was also carrying 21 military personnel in addition to the 16 medical evacuees. So they had some people that were really in good shape, and they had some people that weren't in good shape. Now, that disappeared on the 19th of December, 1945. When it doesn't arrive immediately, they put out dozens and dozens of planes searching that route as soon as the weather cleared and it was feasible to go out. One of the first major updates was December 28th, and they stated that there was a comprehensive search. They hadn't found anything in 6 days, no oil slicks, no wreckage, nothing. They said that they put up Catalina airliners, Liberator planes, and they are still conducting a thorough search on the route that the Dakota took. That's what they said. And then they said something that blew everybody's socks off, including the families of the people that were on the plane. They said that 5 hours after the plane departed, they received a radio message from it stating, quote, "Alive, alive, we're all well." That's the whole statement, nothing else. Nobody knew anything else about the location, mishap, missing, nothing. Next update, December 30th. Mr. Drakeford was the Air Minister from Australia, and he stated that the search would continue. And then he said that there's every chance that the men are fine and landed on an island, atoll somewhere. Well, that gave a lot of hope to all the families that were following this. But as it turned out, the military in Australia really wasn't too transparent about what was going on. On January 5th, searchers stated that the local cities at all these atolls were notified by boat, told to look out, please search your local atolls. Then on January 16th, the RAAF terminated all searches and advised the pilot's wife, a woman named Mrs. Hazel. The pilot was a man named Lieutenant Neville Hazel. Notified her that the search was terminated. And it was released that there was a second message received from the aircraft that couldn't be understood, but it was received 2 days after the plane disappeared. That would have been December 21st. Well, how come they didn't release that at the beginning? The families of the soldiers on that plane demanded that the search continued, but nobody was listening. Now think about this. Even back then, did they know something that we didn't know? Why would they stop searching if there's an excellent chance that these men were alive? In February 1946, the families had a press conference and said that they had been told very little information since December 21st, telling them that their loved one was missing, other than what was released in the press to the public. On September 6, 1946, the family of Samuel Edley was finally formally notified that their son was on the flight and had disappeared. Yeah. Months and months later, finally the military figures out, oh yeah, this guy was on the flight too. Well, was he really, or did they not know where he was and they just put him on that flight because that could account for a disappearance? December 20th, 1946, Revel Alderson and Bob Bowles, their families had notices put up in the paper that they were missing on the plane, and that the plane vanished in an area with hundreds of small islands and warmer waters and survivable conditions. Now, the reason I set you up with that first disappearance, it's pretty obvious that something very odd happened on the Stailing disappearance, where two people, 2 different days, heard someone calling for help, searched thoroughly, and nobody was there. Now, it couldn't have been a prank because nobody knew that anyone was searching for someone missing on that first incident. And the woman who heard it the second time, she didn't know anyone could be missing in that area as well. Now, let's think about this plane. 2 different radio transmissions that they identified as coming from the air ambulance. Now, the first one said that everyone's okay. That would be very remarkable, even under the best conditions, if that plane crashed. Very remarkable. But if it got sucked into a portal, maybe everyone would live. I don't know. But you've got to start thinking outside the box, because this plane was never found. The men were never found. How could that be? Think about it rationally. 80 years ago. Come on. Two choices. The plane crash landed on an island in one piece and everyone survived. And they had a radio available for a short period of time. I say, in my humble opinion, if that happened, the plane would have been found. It's a big piece of metal. Eventually someone would fly over it and see it shining in the sun. Or the plane flew into a portal and all are in some different dimension somewhere. And maybe while you're in that portal, you can be heard outside the portal. We don't know. A lot of conjecture. Not a lot of facts. Whatever happened to that air ambulance? Extremely odd. Extremely odd. Now, if you haven't watched it, Google the Joe Rogan Experience. Put in YouTube space the Joe Rogan Experience and scroll down and watch my interview. Watch it. That's all I'll say. I wish you'd watch it. I have 900 plus videos on this channel right here. And as you're looking at the TV screen on the bottom left, or the video screen, or the computer, on the bottom left there's a little Can-Am Missing logo. If you click on that logo, it'll take you to all of my 900 videos. I wish you'd watch them. Really. And always read the #1 comment on the video, because that's where my comment will be. And I usually put up there links to other videos, groupings of videos, like memory loss videos, dream finds body videos, things like that you can watch. You are greatly appreciated. My website, missing411.com, books, DVDs, Blu-rays, sweatshirts, hats, and signed posters of every movie I've ever made. Oh, that talk's saying, Dad, you've talked long enough, time to get off. So, I will go. Be safe, be kind, Paulides out.